that enters the mind must be watched as closely as the food that enters the body. With this, I welcome you to fun learning topic, which is food safety. Let's find out what we mean by unsafe food. Sarah was thinking as she was eating her breakfast. Suddenly, she asked her mom, "Mom, can my food be unsafe?" "Yes," her mom answered. "How?" she asked. Sarah's moms explained. "Do you know that food can become contaminated at any point of production, distribution, which responsibility lies within the producer? Also, improper way food is handled at home can also cause foodborne disease. Foodborne disease is a disease caused by consuming contaminated food or drinks. More so, unclean food service establishments like restaurants or unclean markets can cause food to be unsafe. Now, you ask this question: what are the proper ways can one food be saved? Let's find out. What is food safety? Food safety is therefore the sanitary rules by which food is handled in order to prevent food contamination, food poisoning, and foodborne disease. It is also the hygienic handling of food to prevent consumption of contaminated food. Apart from kitchen or personal hygiene, it is important that food is kept clean. Therefore, the housewife must make sure that the foodstuffs purchased are wholesome and free from traces of contamination. Why is food safety important? Why is it important? Food safety is important as it helps to protect consumer from the risks of foodborne illness. It is also helps to prevent consumer from risks of health-related conditions such as allergy or even deaths. It is also important to protect our food processing establishment from product recall, which results in financial losses due to unsafe production. So you can see that food safety is really important. Let's look at food safety rule that you are breaking without knowing it. So we are going to look at safety rule that most people break without knowing it. Skipping out on a simple food safety rule may have a bigger consequence than you think. It may result in a stomach ache. It can have more serious outcome for those with a weaker immune system, like yourself, the kid, the young ones, and the pregnant women. Let's find out the 5 food safety rule that most people forget because they are busy or they forget just they don't know any better. So we are going to look at the food safety rules or mistake that you may not even notice. The first one, the first safety rule the people break without knowing it is improper hand washing. Improper hand washing. When it comes to hand washing, most people don't do it often or not or properly when working in the kitchen. You should wash your hand before cooking and after cooking. The second rule that people break without knowing it is also what? The frozen in the countertop. Most people make a terrible mistake or terrible habit of defrosting meat or food overnight. During that time, they don't know that bacteria can multiply over in just 10 hours, which is plenty to make someone sick. It is better to defrost food by putting it in the refrigerator the night before. If you choose to defrost in a microwave, be sure to cook it right away since the meat is especially cooked at that point. Another mistake that people make without knowing it is what we call cross contamination. Now, many people prepare raw meats and use the same cutting board and utensils to slice vegetable, as you can see in our image there. So they use the same one, the same cutting board and utensils to slice vegetable, fresh food without washing it, which is very bad and harmful. Another mistake that people make without knowing it is undercooking food. Most people use their eyes to determine if the food is fully cooked. Unfortunately, this is not the proper way to determine if food is done. Most accurate ways to determine is by what? Internal temperature. And finally, the mistakes that people made without knowing it is what? Leftover food. That is, keeping leftover food for too long. It is not good. Leftover can be kept for 3 to 4 days in the refrigerator. Be sure to eat them within that time. After that, the risk of food poisoning increases. If you think you will be able to eat leftover in within 4 days, freeze them immediately. Now tell me, how many of this rule or of this safety rule have you broken? Guidelines in handling food. Now, in what way can one handle food properly? We are going to find this out in the guidelines in handling food to prevent contamination. Now, the first thing to do is that wash your hand with soap and water before and after handling food. Number two, buy food from a clean environment or markets. Number three, separate foods when shopping. Select fresh vegetables and fruits. Number four, clean refrigerators once a week. Number five, all food must be covered with fitting cover, especially cooked food. Number six, leftover food or soup should be boiled properly before consumption. Food that have changed from the natural color, odor, or texture should not be purchased or consumed. And finally, use clean water for cooking. These are the guidelines that can help us in handling food to prevent food contamination. What are the risk factors in food contamination? Know that the consequence of the consumption of any contaminated food is development of disease. So such disease that occur due to consumption of contaminated food are called foodborne disease, which are food poisoning and food infection. Let's find them out. Food poisoning. Food poisoning is referred to as an illness caused by a poison or toxin in the food when eaten. I repeat, food poisoning is referred to as an illness caused by a poison or toxin in the food when eaten. Such poison or toxins are usually produced by microorganisms or the result of some chemical reaction in the food. Food poisoning is not usually serious and most people get better within a few days. Food infection. Have you ever had nasty symptoms like nauseous, abdominal pain, fever, or diarrhea just after you have you've taken something or just finished eating something from a street vendor or restaurant. Food infection, also known as foodborne illness, is caused by eating contaminated food. Infection organisms like bacteria, viruses can contaminate the food at any point of processing or production. It can also occur at home if the food is not or is incorrectly handled or not cooked properly. Then, what causes food contamination? Food contamination occurs when something is in the food that should not be there. Contaminated food can be unsafe for consumption. There are three ways the food can be contaminated, which is biological contamination, chemical contamination, and physical contamination. So we are going to look at those factors that can cause what? Food contamination. We said what? Biological, chemical, and physical factors. Let's check them out. Biological factor, that is biological contamination, include bacteria, fungi, yeast, mold, and virus. Bacteria and other organisms can be found in soil, animals, on people, and on the things people touch and use. Of the greatest threat to food safety is the fact that bacteria can multiply from just a few cells to millions in a very short period of time. So you can see that we have to be very careful. So this bacteria, the food bacteria, which I just mentioned some example that they are caused by what? They are mold, fungi, all these things they can be found in the soil, you can find them in the animal, even your hands. So, and they are a serious threat to food safety. So, why are they serious threat? Because just a few of it can turn to what? A millions in a very short period of time. Chemical factors, that is the chemical contamination. This one occur when food comes into contact with or product of toxic chemical, which can lead to chemical food poisoning. Chemical contamination fall into one of the two categories, that is the natural and the artificial. Common chemical contamination include detergents. You know, when you use your detergent, you have to be careful when food is around there. Pesticide, plastic, preservative, or naturally occurred toxin. So all these things are chemical contamination. So you have to be careful when there is food. Be careful of how you handle soap, any soap like detergent. Be very careful. Be careful how you handle pesticide. Be very careful while food is around. So it is not unsafe. At times, you can have a broken plastic. You can find them inside food that you are eating. So all these are what we call chemical factors. So our food can also be unsafe for consumption because of other chemical substances, like I told you, like toxic mercury that find their way into our food or water for drinking. So we have to be very careful. Physical contamination. Physical contamination is an improper storage of food items. Improper what? Storage of food items, carelessness, and unhygienic food handling can get our food contaminated, such that we find stone in our food, you can imagine, or metal or plastic rust, which could be harmful to our health. So these are the types of physical contamination, because the food are what? They are improper handling of food. People are careless in handling the food, and they allow substance like stone or glass or dangerous item inside the food or the drink we want to take. So all these are what? All these are the factors that cause what? Food contamination. First steps to food safety. Now we have there are four steps that can help to keep you and your family safe from food poisoning at home. If you can follow these simple steps, they have what? We have what we call clean, separate, cook, and shield. So you can see it from the image. Clean, separate, cook, and shield. This first step can really, really help us to maintain food safety. Clean. Clean means what? Always wash your hands before and after handling food. Your utensils must be clean, the surface, often. You make sure that everything concerning food is clean. Germs that can make you sick can um can survive in many places around your kitchen, including your food, your hand, your utensils, your cutting board, and your countertop. So let's learn how to be what? Clean in all area, because germs can survive in anyone. The one that you can even imagine, like I said earlier, your hands, it can germs can survive and you can pass it to the food. Separates. Now, this is what we are talking about, cross contamination. That is, you use separate cutting board and plate for meat, poultry, seafood, egg. Keep certain types of food separate. So you can see from our image there, you use different cutting board to cut. When you are doing fresh vegetables, then you want to do meat, fish. I mean, you separate them in order to avoid germs. Cook. Cook to the right temperature. Food is safely cooked when the internal temperature is high enough to kill germs that can make you sick. Don't worry. So anything you want to cook, please make sure that the food is done. And the last one is chill. That is the last one, the chill. Refrigerate and freeze food properly. Refrigerate perishable food within 2 hours. Keep frozen for safety in the refrigerator. To lower the chance of being contaminated, you must carefully um out what you are eating. You must be very, very careful of what you are putting it or what you are eating inside the refrigerator. To lower the chance of getting infected, it is very important to be careful of what you are eating, how you are preparing your food, and storing them. Please take note of that. So make sure watch what you are eating, how the food is being prepared, and storing them. Indeed, food safety involves everyone in the food chain. Hope you learned a lot today. Note that food safety and food hygiene are important as they ensure that the food you handle and produce is safe for consumption. If they are not maintained, consumer could become seriously ill with food poisoning and foodborne illness. So let's take care. Let's be careful of what we're eating. Let's be careful of how we prepare our food and how we store them. Till our next life, till our next class, save food, save lives. Bye.